Hello and welcome to Saints Live, the final whistle. I'm Steve Forbes.
And I'm Kenzie Benali.
And a Boxing Day to forget for Southampton as the Saints lose 3-0 at home to Brighton as Premier League football returns here to St Mary's. Now here to join us to discuss the match we have Joe Prince-Wright and Dean Hammond alongside us. Steve, we'll come to you first. Obviously not the return we wanted to Premier League football here at home. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, frustrating, Steve. Unfortunately, like you say, it's not the return that we potentially wanted or envisioned happening in Nathan's first game at home. I have to say, I thought Brighton were excellent, performed very, very well. They're a dangerous team that are full of confidence and approached the game in a manner that we probably didn't expect without a traditional striker, and kind of swamped the middle of the field and kept possession of the ball. But probably just a few too many individual mistakes from the Southampton players that cost you at this level, unfortunately. And it was just an uphill battle. Brighton scored at good times for them, difficult times for Southampton. Even though Southampton started the game, very, very well in the first couple of minutes of both halves, really, and had half opportunities or openings to maybe do a little bit more. But yeah, I think the frustration and disappointment would be that Brighton just looked a little bit of a level above, if I'm honest. But a more experienced team, a team that's been together a little bit longer, and they showed that today. So look, frustrations all round, but we have to remember that Nathan Jones has been brought to the football club because the team has not been winning. So he hasn't got a magic wand. He's not going to be able to change things instantly. There's been issues this season, and that's why he's come into the football club to try and implement a new philosophy, a new way to try and win games. But the disappointment will be that Brighton played some brilliant football, but weren't a huge threat and didn't have to do too much in the goals. And I think that's what I mean by the individual errors, except for the third goal, which was obviously a wonder strike. But yeah, lots to work on, but I suppose the one positive that Nathan will have learned a lot about his players today, which he can take away and move forward with. But yeah, disappointment and frustration, I think.
And what about yourself, Joe? What did you make of the game?
Very similar thoughts to Dean, to be honest. I think it was just a case of Brighton scored at very bad times, the Saints, and those mistakes, like we said before the game, just stay in games, don't beat yourself. And Saints just kind of gave Brighton a 2-0 lead there with what Dean mentioned there. They didn't really have to do a lot, did they? They didn't really come flying out the traps and weren't too dominant, but they were just slick and clinical whenever they got those opportunities. And Saints kept toying away, and in the second half were much better. But again, when those big moments arrived, it was just that lack of a final touch. And I think generally just a lack of confidence. It was very similar to before the World Cup break in a lot of ways. And that's kind of understandable. This is a team that even towards the end of last season as well, lost a lot of games. I think it's very hard to get confidence back. This doesn't happen overnight. So again, Nathan Jones got a lot of work to do. I think we saw about 4 or 5 different formations today, so many subs coming on, a lot of things chopping and changing. So it's very much still early days, but as we all know, got to get some more points on the board. So got to cut out the defensive mistakes and then take the chances when they come, because there were a few chances. But I'm just going to say, Kenzie, a very well-deserved victory for Brighton. Sorry.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, no, sorry to cut you off there at the end, Joe. But we will briefly discuss the goals we conceded, I'm afraid. So we'll start with Brighton's first goal from Adam Lallana. He's a player you know well, of course, Dean.
I do, and look, Adam is a very, very good player, technically gifted. Did Southampton make it a little bit easy for him today at times, I think. But he's a gifted player. He gets himself into dangerous positions. Uses that football intelligence that he has, and that the goal came from that. He gets in between the midfield players and the centre half, so it's very difficult to pick him up. When he receives the ball, he's very, very aware of where he is. He's got that lovely Cruyff turn that we all know about, plays it out wide, and then kind of drifts into the box. I think Pero can get closer to prevent the cross, comes in, and Diallo is with Adam, and then allows him to kind of drift into the box, doesn't follow his runner. If you look at it on the replay, he's ball watching a little bit, the centre halves don't anticipate Adam running into the box. They're just kind of covering an area and not a player within the dangerous position of the box. And Adam gets a good contact with the header, but we've just touched on it, me and Joe, those individual errors at his level. Bazunu, he needs to save that, and he knows that. I don't need to say that. He's fully aware that it's an individual mistake, probably a comfortable save, a little bit of rustiness, but no excuse. And he'll be honest enough. I'm sure that he would have held his hands up in the dressing room and apologised to the players. But yeah, it came at a time where the game was pretty even. But Brighton were kind of building a little bit of momentum. And then it's very, very difficult, Kenzie, because from that moment when Brighton are leading, they keep the ball as well as anyone in this division. And the possession stats, I think at some point it was like 78% to Brighton for an away team is huge and something you wouldn't expect. So being 1-0 up was a disappointment and frustration. And like Joe says, Southampton at times this season are beating themselves. And when you're not playing well, you're not creating chances, you've got to stay in the game. And they've not been able to do that today and on quite a few occasions this season. But look, you live and learn, and Bazunu is a good goalkeeper and he's had some very good performances this season. So I hope he doesn't beat himself up. We all make mistakes, and that's just one individual mistake that he's made there.
Now, Brighton's second was an own goal from Roman Perro, and it didn't seem like there was much you could do about that, Joe.
Not really, Steve. It was a good move down the left. Purvis Estepina with a great cross into a dangerous area. I think Bazunu then again, maybe just reeling from that mistake for the first goal, could have maybe been a little bit more confident to come off his line. I mean, the ball was whipped into that corridor of uncertainty in between the centre backs and the goalkeeper, but it was only a couple of yards out. So maybe you'd like to see him be a bit more confident and come out and claim it or push it out, but kind of got caught in two minds there. I think he got a slight fingertip on it, which then just deflected the ball onto Perro's shin knee area. And it looked like maybe without that touch from Bazunu, he would have been able to clear it. So again, just some individual mistakes. But initially, again, it was, as Dean mentioned, Brighton keeping the ball well after that opening goal, played it well down the left-hand side. And then I think Ward-Prowse was trying to cover and get back and provide some defensive cover there on the right-hand side of our defence, but just wasn't quite enough. And at that point, Brighton, again, more clinical, more quality in the final third. And I guess just kind of showed Saints what you need to do when you get in those opportunities in the final third. So not much Perot could do about that. And again, it's the kind of goal that happens when you're down towards the bottom of the table, isn't it?
Well, the third goal for Brighton was an absolute worldie from Sulemana, and Dean, that kind of felt like game over at that point, didn't it?
It did, Kenzie, and it came to a point again where Southampton had started the second half very, very well and had those half chances with Edozie, especially the first one. Could have done a little bit better, and then the second one, a really good block from Lewis Dunk. But it's a brilliant strike from Sulemana, and he had a very good game today. He was very, very dangerous. But I have to be honest, I think there's a frustration there and an understanding from the players that Sulemana is so one-footed in terms of his left foot. You just got to get him on the outside. And he comes inside. I think he's allowed to come inside from Cole Peters. He's passed on to James Ward-Prowse. He keeps allowed to come inside. Then he's got a little bit too much time to compose himself. It's a wonderful strike. It really is. And it looks fantastic. And the goalkeeper has no chance. But again, with the two central defenders, they have not really got anyone to mark. And they're kind of just marking space. They've got to be a little bit more proactive, a little bit more aware and come out and squeeze the ball. He's not going to look for a pass to squeeze through to put a on-running striker. And he's always going to strike it or pass the ball wide. So you've got to get that pressure on and come out and anticipate it. And they're the things that Nathan will see. He will see that. He'll be able to speak to the players. These are the things you need to get across to the players and learn from these mistakes. And when you're feeling pain as a collective group and as individuals, this is where you've got to learn and improve. And you get the chance to do that. And they will have that chance. And look, Nathan's very, very passionate and we'll get that across to the players. But it's a brilliant strike. It really is. But another thing, I think it could be prevented. It could be prevented. Either send him down the outside and force him to cross with his right foot or bring him back inside and make him play wide and get out to the ball a little bit quicker. And just needs a little bit more energy, a little bit more desire to defend. Like I just mentioned with a Edozie shot where Lewis Dunk makes a fantastic block Lianco, Salisu have got to do something very, very similar when Solly marches on the edge of the Southampton box.
Well, Sam Edozie was a player that we were speaking about before the game, and it was his trickery that won Southampton a penalty that ultimately led to the consolation goal. Joe, what did you make of Sam's overall performance today?
Excellent, Steve. I thought he was brilliant when he came on against Lincoln, against Liverpool before the break. He almost scored, and I think basically did everything other than scoring a goal for himself. So Brighton didn't quite know how to handle him. Veltman eventually got around to figuring him out in the first half, but then when he moved more centrally in the second half, he was popping up here, there, and everywhere, and just causing problems. And I think just if he had that little bit of composure, he had 2 chances right at the start of the second half when it was only 2-0 to Brighton, and then one of those goes in, it would have been a different story, I think, in the game. But he has that quality, and he's so young, drop of a shoulder, kind of reminds me of Robert Pires as a winger, the way he just, not the quickest, but just seems to bamboozle defenders just with his movement and just dipping the shoulders low, and a great throwback winger, and really gets the fans off their seats every time he gets the ball. So you don't want him to lose that as a player. Just keep being confident, keep getting on the ball, keep driving forward. I think he's going to be a big player for Saints this season and for the future. So a really good addition, and did really well to win the penalty. Got into some great opportunities in and around the box to get his shot off or have a strike on goal. And it's just that final piece of the jigsaw now for him to put one of those chances away. And I think once he does, Steve, he'll be a player that will thrive off that. And we could see him go on a really good run in terms of goal scoring and assists. But honestly, the main bright spot for Southampton today was the performance of Samuel Edozie.
Yeah, he's certainly an exciting player, isn't he? Now, Dean, I'd love to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. You said that the positive from today's match was that Nathan Jones would have learned a lot from his side. What are those learnings that you were speaking about? Because it didn't go to plan for him today.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Kenzie, you'll learn a lot about the player's personality and character. When things aren't going as planned or as well as you want, you'll see the reaction from the individual players. You'll see the reaction on the pitch, the reaction in the dressing room, which is important because you need all different types of players to be successful. And I think maybe the system, I think Nathan wants to play free at the back. I think that's what he wants to do. Why he didn't do that today, he'll have his reasons, whether that's because he was playing against Brighton and he wanted to approach the game differently. But I would love to see Nathan impose his style, impose his philosophy of why he's come to the football club, not to maybe just line up against the opposition and nullify the opposition. This is a want as a Southampton fan. I want to see a team that you can identify with, a team that the players can understand what the manager wants. And I think that comes from having a consistent formation, having a consistent message on the training ground of this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to attack. This is how we're going to set up defensively. Joe's mentioned it. Changing system during games is good. It's all part of the modern game. But I think you need to get the basics and the foundations right first. And I think I want to see that from Nathan as a manager, because that's why he's come to the football club, because how the success he's previously had at Luton, and they would have had a structure and a philosophy, and that's how they won games. Now, we need to be patient with him. We need to allow to give him time, because like we say, the reason he's at the football club is because we weren't having success. So a change was needed. So I think we may need some short-term pain to get that longer-term success that we all crave and we all want. That's difficult in the Premier League. That's difficult with Southampton in the position they are. But the league is still tight. And I actually think if we take a little bit of short-term pain and work out the system, the best players that Nathan wants, and get the players up to speed and understanding, then we will be fine. But a little bit of short-term pain for all of us as fans, as lovers of the club, it is probably needed. And we need to be patient and support the manager in this time.
Yeah, we were all quite positive, weren't we, when the squad was announced earlier, and interested to see how the game would pan out, maybe a few surprises in there. Joe, what didn't quite work out today, and what do you think should be addressed when they go back to Staplewood for the training sessions?
Steve, I think it's defensively again. I mean, you're looking at the table, conceding nearly 2 goals a game on average, and only one team in the Premier League has conceded more goals this season. So you have to get better at the back, and you have to give yourself a chance to win games. I mean, looking at some of the stats, Saints are nearly double the amount of expected goals as Brighton today. They had great opportunities, just can't finish them off. And I think sometimes it's something you can't really work on a training ground. It's that confidence, it's that belief, and it's really, really difficult to get as a unit and as a group. So I really liked when Aribo and Stuart Armstrong came at halftime, very positive from Nathan Jones. And I'd like to see more ball carriers and players who can keep the ball and just take some pressure off the defensive unit. I think that was much better in the second half to have that and just give Saints a little bit more confidence that they can keep the ball, build, go forward. And then we know that Shea Adams can finish chances. We know that James Ward-Prowse can pop up in the right areas. And we've seen the talent of Sam Edozie today and what he can deliver. So I think defensively, Steve, that's the main improvement. I had to cut out these silly mistakes. And if you look at the game today, one big mistake from Gavin Bazunu for the first goal, a screamer from Solly March for the other. And then is it an even game? Probably, but you've given Brighton a couple of goal lead and they're going to be much more confident and playing out the back and playing with a lot of creativity. So Saints need to, like I said, just work on defensive shape, whatever that is, 4 at the back, 3, 5 at the back, whatever they're going to go with, and get some kind of identity back. Because at the moment, and let's not forget, it is a team of players that have played for one manager for nearly 4 years. And now they're playing or being asked to play a very different style, new voices, a lot of new ideas. It's going to take time, like Dean said. So all is not lost, but there needs to be a lot of really hard work, especially defensively on the training ground, I think, to move forward as a club and as a team this season.
Yeah, most definitely a lot of hard work needed, but not long to go until their next fixture, Dean. It is, of course, Fulham on New Year's Eve. What are your early thoughts ahead of that game?
Well, another tough game, like they all are in the Premier League. I think Fulham have won 2-3-0 today against Crystal Palace. So they've had a really good start to the season. And they're a good team. They really, really are. So it's going to be another tough test. But I'd like to see a reaction. I think as a player, I always felt that was needed, a reaction. You can't, I say it, I'm probably repeating myself, you can't control the result. You can't. You can play well and not win, and you can play badly and win. So you can't control that. But a reaction from the players, and Joe mentioned there, an identity and approach, and see some of the ideas that we can see that Nathan's working on and coming to fruition and seeing it in the game. That doesn't guarantee goals, that doesn't guarantee results. But then it's progress. And I think at the moment, under a new manager, you want to see progress. You want to see, okay, I can see where this team is heading. I can see what we're trying to do. And again, that takes time. But if we can do that bit by bit, then I think that this team will be all right. Because we've seen it. Look, the result against Chelsea in the season is not a fluke. The other performances we've seen this season, they're not a fluke. The players can do it. They can compete in this league and they compete against any team in this league. So they know they can do it. It's that magic word. It's that confidence that Joe uses. And it's magic in football. If you've got confidence, you feel like, 10 foot tall and you feel like the best player in the world. And that takes time and that comes with results. So maybe digging a result out against Fulham is what's needed. But just seeing those few ideas and them being a little bit more solid, conceding less goals and building from there, I think is important against Fulham in the next fixture for Southampton.
Yeah, it was a big win for Fulham today, 3-0, as you say, Dean, against Crystal Palace, albeit helped by Palace getting 2 red cards. Fulham sit 8th in the Premier League, Joe. So, Southampton do have a tough task, ahead of them when they go to Craven Cottage.
Yeah, Fulham's the team I watch a lot of with my role with NBC, a lot of American players there. So, know a lot about them. Yeah, it's going to be tough. You've got to stop the supply line to Mitrovic. They're going to play quite direct. They're going to get their wingers high. They're going to put you under a lot of pressure. But there are some opportunities on the counter-attack for Saints. So if they can be more resolute defensively, stay in the game until, 50, 60th minute and just hold on to something if it's level. And then I think there's going to be some opportunities because Fulham, like Dean mentioned, they've had a great season. Their fans will be going into this one thinking, we can get another 3 points to end the year on a high and keep pushing. And at the moment, they're talking about potentially European qualification. So it shows you how quickly things can turn around. But the one thing Fulham have is a solid defensive base, solid foundation, hard to play against. And that's what I want to see Saints get back to. I think we saw it at times over the last few seasons, but we haven't seen it enough. And I really want to see that identity, that kind of that hard to beat identity that Nathan Jones said when he was appointed that he wants to bring into Southampton. He obviously had it at Luton in the past as well. Be tough to beat. That's all I want to see from Saints on New Year's Eve. Give themselves a chance to win a game. And I think they have enough quality with some of the players I mentioned, Ward-Prowse, Adams and others, that if they get a chance, they can take it. So I'm still staying positive as always. But, it's been a tough few months, and hopefully now we can start to turn the page on 2022 and look ahead to 2023 of a big win at Fulham, and just get that confidence, that belief flowing. Because once that happens, like Dean said, it's magic in football, and sometimes all it takes is one win or a goal going off someone's backside, and then you're absolutely rolling and flying. So trying to keep the positive vibes.
Well, Joe, Dean, thank you. Always a pleasure to have your company. Joe, all the best at the Emirates this evening. And Dean, we'll let you get back to the cheese board. But as we've mentioned, the next fixture for Southampton is the last day of 2022 away to Fulham. That's a 3 p.m. kickoff, so we'll be with you live from 1:45. Join us then. Bye for now.
See you soon.